You know who did something iconic in a session one time? I got to be honest. I don't know if I've ever told this story, and literally could not believe it. It blew my mind on some like jazz theory Berkeley shit. But the name I'm about to say is the last name you think I'm going to say after those three words. French Montana one time. I was, I was in a session with French Montana one time. My hand on the Bible. I swear on everything. French had like all this like fucking Ciroc. He's in a whole fit. He's got chains on, like da da da. It's like a fleet of cars out there. He's like, does anybody want any food? Does anybody want any, like, he's ordering from some expensive restaurant. I can't remember. Does anybody want any this? There's Ciroc here. There's like 20 bottles of Ciroc. I'm out of my element right now. How am I in this session? This must be 3-4 years ago. French is talking to Emile about the Florence and the Machine records that he loves. And he's just telling him like some of the records that Emile worked on. He's like, I love those records, blah, 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 blah. The crazy part of all of this, after all that long-winded intro, French says, I want you to sample this one and this one on top of each other. So make the intro, this part from this one, and then make the beat when the drums come in, this part of this one. But I want the hook to be the vocal part that happens in this sample with this part from this sample. And I was just like, this is the most impossible thing. And I was in a moment where like the cave had already started. A lot of people were asking me for just anything. And I thought I was up for the challenge. And this French shit was like, okay, don't know what I'm going to do. Don't know what I'm going to do. These are different tempos. These are different keys. The swing of each song didn't really fit. And you know, if you're someone who's ever tried to play like a 90s rap song next to like a Metro Boomin beat on two CDJs, sometimes even the same tempo, same key can be really hard to make it smooth. I cut up all the pieces of the samples. I put them where he said. I put everything in the same key. And at one point, I start to like filter some lows out of one of the samples. I start to like chop a couple things. I start to correct a couple things in Ableton with like the warp markers and just move them where I need to. And it starts being like, hold on. And there was 1 second where I played the vocal part from one Florence song over like the strings of another Florence song. And I was like, you know that minute in a beat where you're like, oh, this could potentially be fucking great. It was that moment. I was like, I just heard 2 seconds and they weren't swung the right way. They weren't quantized the right way, whatever you want to call it. But I heard the notes together and I was like, those notes with those chords are fucking crazy. And so I start just like massaging it, just trying to make it work, start moving things around, chopping things, whatever. And then I start to get it to work and I'm like, this is fucking crazy. And it came out so good. So good. Like, I couldn't believe how good it came out, to be honest. I couldn't believe how well everything was working together. I couldn't believe that just pitching those things just a little bit and listening to what he said, which sounded intimidating, he heard that in his head. He heard those samples on top of each other from different parts of different songs and different eras of this woman's career in his head and told me what to do and exactly what he did. The exact chops and the exact moments. It worked. It was amazing. It was crazy. I would play the beat for people and tell this story for months after this. Harry Fraud got to the studio when I'm in like the middle of all of this. Then I'm like, bro, French told me to put 4 samples on top of each other. If somehow it worked, dude, and it sounds amazing. I barely got through it. Like, I haven't played it for them yet, but listen to this. And I'll play it for Harry. He's like, yeah, it sounds hard. He's like, French does this every single session.